My pleasure to welcome Dr. Nche Zama, MD, Ph.D. Welcome back to the King's Report.
I'm glad to be here, sir. Good morning, my brother.
Well, let me read a little bit of your bio for people who may not know you. You are the author of a new book called Mommy, Please Don't Die, which came out earlier this year. And I'm reading from the Amazon.com summary. The book explores one man's journey of thriving after childhood trauma by becoming a Harvard-educated and trained cardiovascular and thoracic surgeon who changes other people's lives. You spent your childhood in an African village with loving, hardworking parents who valued education, discipline, and pragmatism. Growing up in a collective community gave you a true sense of helping one's neighbor through everyday life. When you witnessed your mother's tragic and preventable death, your world turned upside down. Your father sold your home, and with the power of God and a close-knit community collecting $20, you, as a promising scholar, traveled to America to continue your education. Your journey led you from pain and hurt to earning a Ph.D. in chemistry, a doctorate in medicine, and paved the way for your still thriving global humanitarian efforts. So it sounds pretty good to me. That's a wonderful story. That's interesting. Your community, $20 was enough to send you. That's not a lot of money, but
well, they didn't have a lot of money there. They were poor. You're talking about a National Geographic village, as you grew watching on PBS or some other medium, and that's where I came from. We were subsistence farmers in the National Geographic village, and my parents, who valued and education, were very pivotal in those formative years. And when it came time for me to leave, obviously my mom had just died, and a few years before that, my father, who was uneducated, illiterate, and lived in the village in a hut, sold his hut and the land around it and the crops, and got enough money to buy me a one-way ticket, which was $300 then, to New York. And the tribe got together and donated and passed the basket around, really. And it amounted to $20. And that's what I had when I arrived in JFK.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, your father may not have had a PhD, but I think he had wisdom and knowledge on a deeper level.
Oh, I have enormous admiration for him, his sense of humanity, and his just a sense of purpose. And those are the values in which he imbued within me as a child.
And which country did you come from?
So I was born in Cameroon, as a country in the west central part of Africa that extends from the Atlantic Ocean and up to the desert in the north.
All right. Well, let's go quickly into the current situation in America, and let me ask you: you came from what most people consider a dirt poor community, but you valued education, and you live near Philadelphia. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, currently I'm down in Miami, but I've spent most of my career in Philadelphia.
Right. Okay. So the school district in Philadelphia, I believe they spend, I don't know, roughly $25,000 per year to educate each student. Yet the students in Philadelphia, very low numbers actually have proficiency in math, reading, English, literature, those skills of reading, writing, and doing mathematics. And And yet you, in a very poor African village, were somehow prepared to. I mean, what's heartbreaking to me is that these children who we are if you invest $25,000 per year, you would expect that you would get a good return, right? You'd expect that it would be effective in achieving the goal of educating the young person. What is going wrong in America from your perspective as an immigrant, and you yourself came from a poor background, yet you are able to absorb knowledge to gain a Ph.D. in chemistry and a medical degree? What is your perspective on education in cities like Philadelphia?
Well, I have to say, despite its numerous problems, social ills, and we could talk about this all day, America is still the greatest country in the world. I believe America is truly a land of opportunity. And when it comes to the realm of education, success in education can only come if two principles are embraced. One, an individual mandate. The recipient of that education must understand and appreciate the value of education. Must grow up in an environment where that value is embraced. Secondarily, there's a society mandate. So you have an individual mandate and an imperative by society to support that individual, meaning our children, to be successful. When you look at that composite, it ultimately leads to success in education, because education now holds a tremendous value in the lives of the children. And it's been said that if you educate a child, you uplift communities. So you're really educating the entire community. And when we come back to our cities, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, look at Pennsylvania. And this is data that you stated that can be extrapolated across the country in all the major cities, in our communities, and the enclaves up in the mountains in Elk County, Pennsylvania, for example. We are failing when it comes to education. And I said when I ran for governor of Pennsylvania a little over a year ago, and during that campaign, at every stop, I emphasized the importance of education, because America is failing and fails to realize that we are. And as you stated, not just Philadelphia, Baltimore. I read time and again about high school graduates where less than 10% of the graduating class are literate in basic mathematics, basic grammar, basic writing. And that's an atrocity. And let me tell you why. Because the world we live in now, we've gone through the agrarian revolution. We went through the industrial revolution in the turn of the century. And now, most people may not be aware of it. We're in a knowledge-based global economy. Emphasis on knowledge-based global economy, where only the best would compete, and only the best, or the best that we can be, can provide us the value and the access to the opportunities that we need to enrich our lives. And in that regard, when you come back to America and look at our educational system, you begin to realize that we are not preparing our children for that global community, which they will mandatorily have to face. And also, education has been so politicized that our children and the educational system they find themselves in have become pawns to individuals who are seeking political ascendancy and have no interest in bringing any value to our children. Therefore, I've said time and again that to be successful, to prepare ourselves for a future that we will face, to prepare our kids as they move into a future, they're the messengers that we're sending to a future we will never see. We have to begin to craft a strategy akin to what we did after the Second World War in rescuing Germany. This has to be something that has to start at the level of the White House and down to every community in the state of Pennsylvania and the city of Philadelphia. And this is so important because China, India, our European allies are moving at jet-lag speed ahead of us while we're spending our energies instead of focusing on the enrichment of our children's mind to prepare them for a future that will put America and leave America in a position of leadership to help the world. We're engaging in unnecessary social issues and acrimonies that we're promoting among people and our children.
Well, okay, let me, I don't want to play the devil's advocate, but I want to, there's a problem that I see. Every teacher in America is required to go to get a degree from an education school. They need to get a degree from a school of education. Nearly all of the schools of education in every state in the nation have the basically it's critical theory, which is a Marxist, Paulo Freire, theoretician of education. He was a Marxist, and basically many of the young teachers that are going out to schools all across America, many of them are indoctrinated in a Marxist victim oppressor model of education. And my honest opinion is that many of these teachers are more interested in revolutionary social change than in educating our children in the basics that you talk about. So I
with you. I certainly agree with you. And we should be teaching our, my philosophy is unity is important. We can be united without being uniform. And our children need to understand that collectively we can accomplish more. And any teaching methodology on philosophy that seeks to pit one child against another, to me, is wrong. Because what you're doing at that time then is indoctrinating a child. And during their formative stages, that formative stage in their lives, they're very impressionable. And what you do in that classroom would carry on through, unfortunately, the rest of their lives. And so teaching should be constructive, not destructive. And the philosophy that you're talking about that is so prevalent, unfortunately, in our educational system now, seeks to destroy and not construct. And our kids need to be learning the basics because, as I said, we live in a global world. There is no affirmative action in global commerce. You think about that in a second.
Right.
And on any day, and I told my own children that, who are vastly successful, I must say, that any day, excellence trumps diversity. And so I've taught my children to embrace excellence in the way they study, what they study, how they interact with each other. Because ultimately, that is what's going to transform their lives and transform society, and not the divisiveness. And another thing, this indoctrination, which a lot of people don't seem to pay attention to that you talk about, has significant import. Why is that? Because we live in a global world now where, as I stated, China, India, the European countries, even Africa, South America, they're moving at jet-lag pace. And we are not the dominant country that we used to be. We're in a trajectory that's going in the wrong direction. And the way to address this, we got to start with our educational system.
Right. Yeah, I know Governor Shapiro, when he was running for office, he said that he would support funding for to allow, I guess, lower income students to attend a school of their choice, school choice, right? Charter schools or other schools. But now I believe he vetoed legislation which would have funded, I think, $100 million for school choice in Pennsylvania. And I don't know if you have any comment about this. I mean, I don't want
Sure, certainly will. I will always comment on this because my statements are never meant for political expediency. I have a commitment to human service at the highest level of excellence. And I would be betraying these children if I don't comment on something as crass as this. Mm. He made a promise and he switched, just like a lot of politicians do. And in the fight of the elephants, what really suffers is the grass. In this case, the kids are the grass. I've always believed in school choice because the abysmal status of our educational system has left children the victims. And you and I will die and leave. I'm a pragmatist. And what legacy are we going to leave if we lived just addressing only our personal concerns and paying lip service to human continuity of humanity, which is our children? Therefore, I believe that the governor needs to think about this, and he still has an opportunity to reverse his position, because school choice, especially in the atmosphere that you and I are talking about, where our school systems are failing, the public school system is a mess, a total mess in Pennsylvania, that parents should be able to have skin in the game. Mm-hmm. And it's been shown time again that kids, especially from poor communities, who are given the opportunity to participate in school choice, perform better.
That's true. Okay, well, and no debate there. Okay, let's switch the topic to another issue. Since you do have a medical degree, I want to ask your opinion about the way that the United States, actually the entire world, dealt with the COVID-19. They call it a pandemic. I'm curious if you have any comments about the lockdowns, about the vaccine mandates, and those issues.
Well, first of all, America failed its citizens. And I speak for America, not for any other country. And I guess you can look at that and look at the whole world from that perspective. We knew there was an article in Scientific American published in the spring of 2010 that predicted a virus that would be coming soon. We've known that there would be a major pandemic. We've had a few scourges before that in 2003 and whatnot. And we were woefully unprepared for this virus. And the consequences we all know now, the unnecessary loss of life. And then the pandemic hit, and it was terribly mismanaged. Our leaders were panic-stricken. They didn't know what to do, and they were running into each other. And the focus became vaccines, vaccines, vaccines. God is eternally wise. And I'm not really talking about, within all of us, I speak as a scientist and a doctor, is a tremendous capacity to withstand an extrinsic assault by a bacteria and a virus. And sometimes our defense systems are overcome. But like any nation, what makes America strong and what reduces our vulnerability is the great army, military we have, the Marines, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, and an arsenal of nuclear weapons. And so if a foreign nation seeks to attack us, they have to confront and grapple with this tremendous military might that we have and the broad spectrum of weaponry that we have. The human body has those as well, weapons that can address this. And just like with the US Army and the military, you gotta keep the soldiers exercising, feed them well, keep them in good shape. So in the case of an attack, an invasion, they will be prepared. The human body also needs to keep its military, its defense forces in good shape. Simple as that. And so the focus in the management of COVID was entirely on vaccination, while people were dying in the thousands and if not millions in the cities and in the remote enclaves of this great nation. Not only that, the mandatory lockdowns. And what did I do? Eventually, we would have to emerge. And when we emerged weaker than we were when we went into lockdown. Because the immune system needs to be tested. You know, it needs practice constantly, it needs to work out. And it made us even more vulnerable. And what more? We saw that crimes of despair were going through the roof, where suicide became one of the most common causes of death among the ones that are most vulnerable among us, our children. This is what policies in the management of COVID, bad policy, led us to.
Okay, well, this is actually obviously a very big topic. I definitely agree with you. I do know that doctors and medical researchers who were talking like you and saying we need to strengthen people's immunity. We need to, they were recommending zinc and various, what else? Zinc,
C, vitamin D,
vitamin C, various. Strengthen people's immunity in various ways, and of course the importance of natural immunity. And as you pointed out, the leaders of our country, Dr. Fauci and others, basically were discounting natural immunity as worthless or not worth talking about. And then doctors who did speak about this were censored. They were deplatformed from YouTube and Twitter and other platforms. So what is your opinion about the National Institutes of Health, the Centers for Disease Control? Some people are saying that they are basically bought off by the pharmaceutical industry. I'm curious what your view is.
Well, we need the National Institute of Health. We need the FDA. We need the CDC. So it's not whether or not we need them. The question is, are they doing the job they're supposed to do to protect American citizens? And if you look at a problem like COVID, and if you address it, addressing COVID has to be it has to be a multi-pronged strategy. It can't just be one thing. Of course, the pharmaceutical industries, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, they've made their billions. What do you think their primary motivation is? Profits. Now, if they do some good, that's very good. That's very important. But what's going to be driving their strategy day and night is not necessarily what's best for you and for the guys up in Scranton, or in Erie, Pennsylvania. Absolutely not. And so the federal government at that level, when we talk about the CDC and the NIH, when COVID hit, as you and I have talked about, they forgot about the natural intrinsic defenses that we have, our immune system, our nutritional status, and all these things that are very important. And every doctor or healthcare person out there understands what I'm talking about.
Right.
And when we look at the greater mortality from COVID, where was it? The inner cities. And what is it about the inner cities? COVID enters your respiratory system. That's the portal of entry. If you live in New York City or Philadelphia, you essentially have COPD. Why is that? Because you're breathing in all the pollution every day. And so the virus gets in there. You're already compromised to begin with, but you're still functional. And the virus, you take a hit from it, and your lungs say, hey, I wasn't ready for this. I'm not really in good shape. The mortality went up. Their nutritional status is not the best. In vitamin D intake is extremely low in African Americans. Actually, we know that in medicine. Zinc, magnesium, many of these trace elements, many of the things that your immune system needs. Vitamin C intake is extremely low. And we know that the immune system, the functionality of the cells in the immune system need these very important elements to be able to stay strong and to be able to function properly and protect your body. And so when people were talking about, we need to look at nutrition, we need to look at supplements, we need to look at this globally, they were cast asunder because the only weapon that those in leadership believed was what? A jab. And you know what happened to the jab, obviously. It came time when the first jab would not be good enough, the second would not be good enough, the third would not be good enough. And when do people say, hey, wait a minute, stop. I thought you said this was going to protect me. And then it came to a point where they said those who had not been vaccinated and that the natural immunity was just as effective.
You know, I think a lot of Americans have lost trust in government. I mean, even just me personally, I always assumed, maybe I was just naive, but I assumed that most people in government were sincere public servants. They wanted to do what was right. But now I don't think that way. I think that the person who is speaking to me, claiming to represent science, is lying to me. And he's lying in service of another agenda, which has nothing to do with public health. And I don't think I'm the only one who thinks that way. But that is how, I'm sorry to say that, because most of my family are medical doctors and nurses and people in healthcare. And I always respected that profession quite a bit. But I think the healthcare system in America has been corrupted in many ways. And I don't know if you have any comment about that.
Well, I appreciate your disillusionment, and it's sad to say it is universal. A lot of people feel the way you do, that deep disappointment. And we love to have a government that truly cares and has a commitment, to our well-being. But our experience through COVID in many other instances has left many people disappointed in our leadership. And there are a lot of things that have happened. We've got great men and women, and I speak for one in the healthcare industry, nurses, doctors, that labor around the clock, and they have one primary focus, the centerpiece of all their efforts, for the patient, to serve others. But something has happened in medicine. And by the way, medicine is the largest industry in America. About 1 out of every $5 20 cents of every dollar goes to the healthcare industry. Think about it. About 20% of our GDP. That's a lot of economic power, but guess what? It's also a lot of political power. And healthcare has now been taken over by big industries. It's a business. How many doctors are still in private practice, you'll ask? They've all been absorbed into these conglomerates, this huge systems. And when they do that, you lose your freedom. Mm. And it used to be the patient was the doctor's primary focus. Mm. Now they dictate policy to you once you've signed on the dotted line. And if you stood up and you said, I have an option to vaccine, or yes, okay, I agree with the vaccine, but should we consider this? Your opinion is not welcome because you're now betrothed to this giant of an organization that is so nebulous and complicated you don't even understand. And so you begin to see so much apathy in this great industry among the providers, the ground crew that are keeping it afloat. America, really, if this is not addressed, we would be heading in the wrong direction because as we now know, nurses are quitting in droves.
That's right.
Think about it. And we're having to go overseas and pilfer from countries, even desperate nations, South Africa, places like that, India, will come and fill the blanks in America. But we have to address the root cause of this problem. Our political leadership has looked the other way. And guess who suffers in the battle of elephants? It's the grass, and that grass is our patients, the people.
Well, I think we're running out of time. Let me show everyone the your publication so they can learn more about you and your story is very inspiring, I have to say. Yeah, so I do recommend everyone. It's called Mommy, Please Don't Die, and by Nche Zama. And I hope I didn't mispronounce your name.
You got it. It's Nche Zama.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for coming on the King's Report. We're running out of time, but we do appreciate your coming on today.
I thank you for giving me this opportunity. Since I love practice, I've been working, and we talked a little bit about COVID, and so I decided to do something about it. And I've started a company that's going to be producing true natural supplements to be able to address, because I know there's another pandemic on its way. And we need to stop forgetting about the government telling us what to do and roll up our sleeves and do something for ourselves. And it's called Miami Max Life. And hopefully I'll get a chance to be talking about it in the future. Yeah. Okay.
And do you have a website at Miami Max Life?
Yes, we're working. We just got the product ready. We're talking to manufacturers, and you will see that in the next month or so. We'll be launching.
Good. Okay. Well, we look forward to that and to seeing you soon again. Thank you for coming on the King's Reports.
Thank you, my brother. You have a beautiful day.